Hello, you're listening to Count Richard von Coudenhove, Kalergi. Today is Tuesday, the 3rd of August, and here's a couple of comments since my last video. In Spain, Barcelona, one of the 10 worst offenders over the summer was an illegal Algerian migrant who was arrested 14 times in 11 weeks. The 18-year-old was arrested 8 separate times for theft and 6 times for violence and intimidation, and was part of a group of migrants who arrived in Spain last year. The second worst offender was a Moroccan migrant aged 28 who had been arrested 11 times for violence and drug trafficking. Criminals with migrant backgrounds have become a major issue in countries affected by mass migration. In Italy, as many as 1 in 3 suspects in crimes are from a foreign background, and in Berlin up to 50% of all suspects have a migrant background. Similar results in the Austrian capital of Vienna. How long before insane migration policies that refuse to deport in mass those that arrive and are welcomed and express their gratitude by committing crime, eventually affecting those countries and regions that are dependent on tourism to survive? The right to criminals to reoffend should never exceed that of the victim, especially when the criminal is a guest in the state. Italy. 10 migrant transport vessels are now operating in the Mediterranean as the left-wing establishment Democratic Party looks to reopen Italy's ports. In anticipation of new policy, the Italian NGO Saving Humans and the German NGO Mission Lifeline have now launched vessels, with the NGO group celebrating the move, writing, quote, "Their odyssey is over and a bit of humanity can be seen on the horizon. Welcome to Europe." Until Salvini gets elected on a landslide and stops this madness, Varadkar and Flanagan will be very busy. More from that canary in the coal mine. Malmo, a woman in her 30s, was fatally shot in the head on Monday morning. Gunshots were heard around 10 a.m, with different reports saying between 3 to 8 shots being fired. The woman was said to be walking with a man carrying her baby at the time of the shooting. Thankfully, the baby was unharmed. Video has been released of a masked man dressed in black fleeing the scene of the shooting. After the shooting, police were called to another incident, that of a burning car, which may be connected. Local media has speculated that the father of the child, a well-known criminal, was the intended target. A Swedish municipality that took in one of the highest numbers of asylum seekers is facing a crisis, as natives move out and decimate the local tax base. The municipality of Filipstad is facing increasing costs as unemployment among migrants has surged and financial assistance rates have tripled, with dependency on welfare high and education levels very low, with one of the senior managers of the area saying that, quote, "We must accept that there will be some people who will need the support of society for their entire lives." This, combined with an exodus of native Swedes, the vast majority of which are of working age and skilled, with unemployment rates for the native Swedes at around 3.6% and that of foreign-born at being over 20%, with some reports stating that as much as 80% of non-EU citizens are unemployed. The moral inversion continues. A Scottish 17-year-old who was suspended for filming his teacher telling him that he couldn't say in class that there are only 2 genders has been told that he cannot return to his school. Freedom is slavery, said Orwell, and in Scotland truth has become illegal, as it was in Soviet Russia, where the Marxist concept of transgender originated as a tool to destroy the traditional family. I'm reminded of the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale The Emperor's New Clothes, which was first published in 1837 and is about 2 weavers who convince the emperor that they are using a fine fabric invisible to anyone who is hopelessly stupid, only for a child to point out the obvious. The punishment of this Scottish boy has been made a lot more severe because in doing so he drew attention to the idiocracy of his teacher, the Scottish education system, the government and the left, who pretend in the face of basic science that there are more than 2 genders because some extremists say so. In France on Saturday, Lyon have detained an Afghan man aged 33 seeking asylum in France after 1 person was stabbed to death and 9 others were injured, 3 critically. The victim was 19 years old and on his way to a music festival. When the police arrested the man, he was in a psychotic state and said that he had heard voices telling him God was insulted and he needed to stab people. He was caught on video high-fiving another man with blood-stained hands. And now for some domestic issues. The government has announced that it is to spend a further 65 million on new direct provision centres in 4 county premises that are being sought in counties Kildare, Louth, Wicklow and Meath. Over 6,200 are currently in 39 centres across the country, and with an increase of 36% in the number of applicants this year on last year, and with the average cost of direct provision accommodation is costing €35 per man, woman and child. Added to that, the cost of emergency accommodation is now €100 per person per every man, woman and child, and with around 1,100 in emergency accommodation, this cost could well exceed €110,000 per day. Since its introduction, direct provision has cost the state a staggering €1.25 billion, with over 60,000 people being passed through the system. With 1,400 deportation notices being served last year and only 140 actually leaving the state, there is no political will to deal with this madness. I'm reminded of the quote from the Kevin Costner film Field of Dreams: "If you build it, they will come, and they will keep coming with the help of the NGO-funded human trafficking operations in the Mediterranean. How is it okay that we have to keep borrowing millions of euro per year and give it away in foreign aid? 900 million this year, increasing to 1.15 billion in the next few years. Should the cost of direct provision be taken out of the overseas aid budget? All this is happening when the CSO released figures last month that Ireland's debt is a whopping €44,365 owed by every man, woman and child, which is 4 times higher than the pre-crisis level of €10,667 of 2007. Ireland has one of the highest per capita debt levels in the world, with nearly 50% of the tax take being spent servicing this debt, compared with that of Germany, which is only 4% of its tax take to service its debt. NTMA has also revealed that in July that the state has paid out more than 60 billion in interest over the last decade. This situation leaves this country very vulnerable, especially when you factor in the uncertainty of Brexit. A 46-year-old man from a non-EU nation was charged with rape of a woman in June 2017 at a house in Kildare town. Gardaí told the Dublin District Court that the accused had been refused leave to enter Ireland in 2004 and objected to bail, citing flight risk. He said the accused had no status here, he had never engaged with immigration services, and his passport had no stamps for entering Ireland or the UK, and Gardaí adding that they were at a loss to say how he came to Ireland. With his barrister, I wonder who paid for that, pleading for bail, said that he was willing to sign in daily at his local Garda station. Judge O'Leary refused bail and remanded him in custody, no deportation. And in another case at the Dublin District Court involving both a foreign national and Judge O'Leary, a taxi driver was arrested at his home on Monday morning and has been charged with 2 counts of rape and 2 counts of oral rape on a lady in her 20s at Emmett Street, Dublin, during the early hours of the morning of December the 9th last year. The accused, who cannot be named for legal reasons, was granted bail of €6,000, refrained from driving his taxi, sign on daily at his local police station and obey a curfew where he must remain at home between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. With Gardaí objecting to bail as the accused had already left the country after the rape and a public appeal for information, but returned after making contact with his brother and his solicitor. The judge also ordered him to stay away from the complainant and to avoid parts of Dublin. Must give detectives his mobile number and be contactable at all times, and will be held in custody until his next hearing on Thursday. Free legal aid was also granted, no deportation. And in another story that caught my attention this week, Gardaí are investigating an act of vandalism which someone drilled their way through 88 solar-powered lights which had just been erected on a walkway in Crosshaven, County Cork. A drill appears to have been used to break the photoelectric cell of each individual light, rendering all of the lights useless. A concerned citizen or a vandal. A local community in Enniscrone in Sligo says it will fight plans to construct a 5G mast at an ESB substation in the seaside village, citing health concerns. The proposed mast will be just metres away from 5 housing estates, a creche and a nursing home. The County Council have granted planning for the mast, with locals feeling deceived as the planning notice was advertised in local press the same day as the local elections were held. Enniscrone is absolutely defiant against the construction and are planning to hold public meetings and are working on an appeal. There are growing concerns about the safety of 5G, with one resident saying that Brussels and Geneva have already stopped the rollout because they have no proof that it is safe. Kerry County Council has passed a motion to look into the greater detail the safety aspects of 5G before it is to be rolled out. And a local community in Durrow, County Laois, has hit out at the erection of a mast in their village, saying that this was done with the consultation with residents believing that it was a street light. The company, Signal Communications, was initially planning to erect the pole in a local GAA ground before finding a more suitable location. The 12-metre pole will have 4G with a 5-metre extension for 5G. It has since emerged that the GAA would have been paid €30,000 for this. Isn't it great to see local communities standing up for themselves? And I suggest to all my subscribers to ring their local councillors and TD and voice your concerns about health concerns about the lack of independent testing on the safety of 5G. I'm someone who walks every day for an hour in all weathers, and on my daily walk I like to observe and contemplate, and it occurred to me that I hadn't seen a swallow or a swift, two of my favourite summer visitors, in the last few weeks. I decided to ring Birdwatch Ireland and have a chat about the threat 5G may pose to the bird life of Ireland. I was given a name and an email address and will be following up the story. It is important that we get some sort of unity among different groups to highlight and cooperate with each other when the need arises. A Pakistani man who is planning to marry his French girlfriend has been granted an injunction against the Minister for Justice restraining his deportation. The Minister had issued a deportation order following his divorce from his Portuguese wife, whom he had married in 2014, with the state alleging that Mr. Khan's marriage was a marriage of convenience. The case will be placed before the High Court in October, by which time the couple are expected to be married. Mr. Khan arrived in Ireland in October 2012 on a student visa and studied in Griffith College, Dublin. 3 years later, he was granted residency following his marriage to the Portuguese national. At €40,000 fees per day in the High Court, who's going to pay the bill? Now, I attended the Google protest on Friday, and it was great to see so many familiar faces, all in good spirits. And I hope that some of my subscribers, if they have the time, can drop by and say hello. Your company would be greatly appreciated. I also got in touch with one of the councillors who in the media had made descriptions regarding the ACI supporters as Nazis, and I asked the councillor had they recently driven down Barrows Street and seen the age profile of those outside, with very few under the age of 40 and some on a bus pass. I also brought to his attention that some of the protests in the Middle East involving ladies wearing the burqa, that in July of this year a lady was jailed for 33 years for removing her burqa, and another mother and daughter were jailed for 16 years each, and that ongoing protests in the Middle East, some of them filming themselves burning their burqa, are commonplace. Well, they're just a couple of thoughts which are my own. Thanks for listening. Good afternoon and good luck.